am up on the platform today. That way you don't see my knees shaking. Yes, usually I'm down there. But anyhow, thank you all for being here for Women's Sunday. And you may look at that and say, what does a feeling for missions mean? And why would I have picked that? Our church is very much into missions. Whether you've noticed it or not, with the Operation Christmas child boxes, these quilts up here, and I'll go on and tell a little more about that. But the scripture that I picked for this morning is from Acts 17, verses 16 through 29. And they read, Paul is in Athens at this time, and while Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. So he reasoned in the synagogue with the Jews and the God-fearing Greeks, as well as in the marketplace, day by day, with those who happened to be there. A group of Epicurean and Stoic philosophers began to dispute with him. Some of them asked, "What is this babbler trying to say?" And others remarked, "He seems to be advocating foreign gods." They said this because Paul was preaching the good news about Jesus and the resurrection. Then they took him and brought him to a meeting of the Areopagus, where they said to him, "May we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting? You are bringing some strange ideas to our ears, and we want to know what they mean." All the Athenians and foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but talking about and listening to the latest ideas. Paul then stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus and said, "Men of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription, 'To the unknown God.' Now, what you worship as something unknown, I am going to proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by hands. And he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything, because he himself gives all men life and breath and everything else. From one man he made every nation of men, that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he determined the time set for them and the exact places where they should live. God did this so that men would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring." These verses take place during Paul's second missionary journey. He is in the city of Athens, which is known as the cradle of democracy, and is a city that is full of statues of many idols the people believed are gods. It was also labeled a very beautiful city. In Paul's teaching in Athens, he first went into the synagogue and preached the good news there about Jesus. Then he went into the streets and the markets and all around, like places like that. And finally to the Areopagus, which was a larger and quieter place than the streets. And the couple of commentaries I was looking at said there's two versions of this Areopagus. One is that it's a large courtyard, and the other one said it was the top of a hill. So we could see that it was a much larger place than wandering the streets or talking in the synagogue. We have missionaries on foreign fields that go where the people are to teach the good news about Jesus, just as Paul did in Athens. We also have missionaries in our United States that talk to people in towns, cities, various places in the cities, because large cities have different neighborhoods. They also talk to people in smaller communities and rural areas that maybe don't have a church in their community, or there may only be one church there, and it may not be one that tells totally about Jesus. Not only can these missionaries spread good news to everyone, but we can also spread that good news when we're visiting with friends, family, and with the many things we do for missions in our church. In verses 22 and 23 in Eugene H. Peterson's The Message, which is a version of the Bible translation I've been reading throughout this year as my study one for daily reading through the Bible. And he says, "So Paul took his stand in the open space at the Areopagus and laid it out for them. It is plain to see that you Athenians take your religion seriously. When I arrived here the other day, I was fascinated with all the shrines I came across. And then I found one inscribed, 'To the God nobody knows.' I'm here to introduce you to that God, so you can worship intelligently and know who you are dealing with." In these verses, we can see that Paul took his message to a larger place to talk to the people. Our missionaries go from where the people are to places where they can congregate as a group. This may be tents, pole-type buildings, and later building churches, schools, hospitals, and/or clinics. Our missionaries have a lot of talents and work at teaching as well as healing, agriculture, and bringing people to know Jesus as their personal saviors through all of these methods. It is through their talents and their love of God that our missionaries are sent around the world to work with the people. Do you know how many of these missionaries and missions our church helps to support, and in what proportions? Let's take a look. One of the first places to look, if you've looked at our church budget when it was handed out, shows that our church gives 10% of the offerings that are brought in to missions. And it's broken down in this manner. 2% of that goes to our American Baptist region, growing healthy churches. Our region works with the pastors and churches throughout Northern California. They also plant some new churches where they feel that they are needed. 1% goes to Bacone College in Oklahoma, a school for Native American Indians. 1% goes to our Seafarers Ministry to help sailors on merchant ships. It gives them a place to go when their ships are docked in the harbors there. This gives them a chance to call home, as many of them are away from home on these vessels for at least 6 months to a year at a time. Can you imagine being away from family for that long and not necessarily always having a place to call them? And this gives them a chance to call home, to use a library and computers for reading emails to and from their family, and for getting to see, even by Skyping some of them, what their families are looking like. 1% goes to United Christian Center in Sacramento, which some of our ladies have been to and some of our others. And that's a place that has job skills, teaches job skills for people that are on disability, for people that are going into the workforce. They have programs for young children. They have daycare centers at most of these for women that work, single mothers in particular, and other things. The one in Sacramento is now called Shores of Hope, but it's still one of our American Baptist United Christian Centers. 1% goes to Russ and Charla Weisner working in Malaysia, starting schools and working out of Pioneer Ministries. And their work there is important, as Russ shared with us a couple of weeks ago. 1% goes to Andy and Stacy Taylor, who work with village missions in Oregon in one of the rural areas. 1% goes to Rainbow Acres in Arizona, which is a full-time facility for handicapped and dysfunctional adults, and it's a live-in center. It is used, they teach them how to care for animals, they teach them how to ride, they teach horses, they teach them how to care for them. They teach the crafts that can be used for them to make livings from. The 1% goes to Glenn and Rita Chapman. You may recall the last time they were here, Glenn showed pictures of the aircraft he built to get around to the various places that are not near to them, with the video equipment that he uses to show movies and things, telling the people there about Jesus, about his resurrection, about how they can come to know him. And Rita has been, they both work also in a university setting, and Rita has been teaching the wives of the men that are studying to become pastors in that area. She teaches them reading, writing, speaking, and other skills that are needed to communicate. Some of these women that come into these classes do not know how to read, and within this I think it's 2-year program, they have learned to not only read and write, but also how to speak in front of a group. 1% goes to Patrick and Rose Pang, and we've had them speaking in our church. They are working with Bible translators in Indonesia, trying to get the Bible out to these Indonesians on the various islands. I think they said there was over 1,000 islands in that Indonesian group that they're trying to reach with the gospel in their own languages. Some of the other ministries that our church has are the Orland, that are listed in our budget also, are the Orland Relief Fund. And that is working with other churches in the area to help people traveling through Orland that are needing help. We have a World Vision orphan that has been adopted, that a certain percentage goes to each month. And there's a lot of these we have on the bulletin board opposite Pastor Mike's office. We have messages and letters from a lot of these people. If you take the time to stop by there, you can read some of the things that each of these are doing. You can also see a picture of our adopted World Vision young man and see how he grows each year as we get new letters and new pictures of him. We also sent to CRI, which is a Salvage Mission Support. When we finished with our daily breads, our secret place, the Sunday school material that is used, that can be boxed up and sent to salvage mission support where they can reuse these and get them out to people that wouldn't have them otherwise. The Orland Ministerial Association is another place that we give. And that's where ministers in our Orland area can meet and work together in our community. The Orland Pantry is another thing, which is used for distribution of food for those in need. When we do have a Vacation Bible School, usually our offering goes to that, as well as a food offering as the kids bring food. And we've had as many as, 3 barrels, 3.5, sometimes, of food to take over there to be distributed. The missions that I talked about, now each of these is labeled in our church budget someplace. If you read it, you will find those items listed there. But there's other missions that we do too. There are special offerings. Right now we have the World Fellowship or World Missions offering in October. And that goes to the missionaries around the world that are out there working diligently to help people come to know Christ as their Savior. In March, we have the Home Mission offering. And that mission goes to our missionaries that are on the home scene, that are all over the United States, wherever there is a need for people working for these United Christian Centers that are out there and for other areas. One great hour of sharing is an offering that we give in June. That offering is one that puts our American Baptist home missionaries right on the front anytime there is a disaster. They were there for all of the hurricanes. They were there in Puerto Rico, in Texas, at Hurricane Katrina. They were on the Atlantic coast when the hurricanes hit there. And I was pleased to see one news item that showed in the background of one of these on the East Coast a couple years ago now. A big sign out there that said, American Baptist Men. We don't have any of those American Baptist men groups here on the West Coast now. But they are still active. They use these one great hour of sharing to get into these people that need help. And they're one of the first ones out there, along with the Franklin Graham Association and other associations that are out there. The fourth offering that we have each year that is for missionaries is the Retired Ministers and Missionaries offering in December. I think it's appropriate that that one is in December because it gives these retired ministers and missionaries that are no longer out on the field or working in our churches an opportunity to be given a gift at Christmas time. Our women's ministries also gives to missions with giving to special missionaries. One of them that our group has given to in the last several years is Reverend Ingrid Roldan Roman in Panama. She works with children at various ages. She has them in her home where she does studies with them. She helps tutor them for school. She does a lot of things for these young people. But she also teaches in a university. When she goes to this university each day, one of her newsletters said she starts out at 5 in the morning and she takes care of these children. She even feeds them. Then in the afternoon, she crosses this bridge to get to the university where she teaches classes. Then she comes back to her house about 10 o'clock at night. So this lady is now getting close to retirement age, but plans on continuing to work where she is and with the people that she is working with. And the latest news we heard from Ingrid was that she has also taken in a young woman and her baby to care for in her home full-time. So we have some outstanding missionaries out there. Another one that we support is Reverend Walter and his Janine White and Lauren Bethel. Those are our three global missionaries. Those three missionaries go out on a regular basis and work with people all around the world. They have worked a lot with women that have been taken as young girls and put into prostitution, and they have brought them out of there and taught them new skills and helped to bring them back into a society and be accepted and give them something they can work for, and to help them know that Jesus is there with them at all times. Another missionary couple we have supported is Kyle and Katrina Williams. They're relatively new missionaries. They were originally sent from here when they started their missionary journey to Paris to study the French language. They have 4 young children, and then they went on to Congo. And while there, they were working with the people there. But right now, they didn't have enough support, so they are back in the United States, and they're waiting to see where God is going to lead them next. We also give to home missionaries, the Shores of Hope, the Peoria Friendship House of Christian Service, and to Rainbow Acres. Some of the things that we do give to Rainbow Acres is jeans, because they cut the legs off and they make placemats, purses, all kinds of things out of these old jeans that we consider are worn out. We roller bandages for Congo from used sheets. We've made baby layettes and sent to various parts of the world. And hospital gowns, masks, wrappers for broken arms and other injuries. And we also give money for donations for health kits, infant kits, and cleanup kits for use after disasters. The ladies in our sewing group make quilts, like these 2 beautiful ones we see up here. And they hand those out to Women's Resource Center, the baby quilts, and the Catholic Services Group, so that they go to some of the homeless groups and others. And they have other organizations also in the community. If you want to find out more about where these quilts and the things this group of women in our church do, talk to Carolyn Denton when she gets back. She is one that has the resources and knows exactly where everything is going and what is needed. One of the other things is our Operation Christmas Child boxes. And I know this is a lot to take in. It's a lot that our church does for missions. And sometimes we don't think of how much our church actually does put into missions. And I think that it is summed up very well in the Messages verses, Acts 17:24 through 29, which read, The God who made the world and everything in it, this master of sky and land, doesn't live in custom-made shrines or need the human race to run errands for him, as he couldn't take care of himself. He makes the creatures. The creatures don't make him. Starting from scratch, he made the entire human race and made the earth hospitable with plenty of time and space for living so we could seek after God. And not just grope around in the dark, but actually find him. He doesn't play hide and seek with us. He's not remote, he's near. We live and move in him. We can't get away from him. One of your poets said it well, we are the God created. Well, if we are the God created, it doesn't make a lot of sense to think we could hire a sculptor to chisel a God out of stone for us, does it? I think we can all agree with that last sentence that he put in there. We don't need a God made out of stone or something that we can look at and say, this is God. He's there. He's with us. It doesn't matter what's going on in our lives, when it happens. It doesn't matter if it's good things. We always think of the good things that he's done for us, and we're right there saying, thank you, Lord. But how often in times of trouble, in times of a death, in the times of sorrow, when we're groping for things, do we not really think of God? And that's the times we really need to get close to God and say, Lord, help me. I need to understand what you are thinking. Please, Lord. And how often do we forget to say that at these times? And just in closing, I just want to say thank you to each one of you that's here that helps with these offerings and with the work that we do, both in our women's work and in our church, for spreading the news, good news of our gospel, of the salvation of Jesus and his resurrection and the life that he gives us, both in our community, our state, our world, our United States, all over. And thank you.